So this morning, is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. So this morning, we're going to hear from the Cardinal on a recorded brief homily. And I wasn't going to say anything until I heard it this morning, and I decided I'd say something. So now this time I'm going to say it before. So, we are going to talk about our annual appeal for the local Church of Washington. And I think that's important for us to remember that we live our lives and express our membership in the local church through our parish, among lots of ways. But that's kind of like the main way that we see it, right? But we belong to a church that is called Washington, right? And these are kind of our neighborhood expressions of this larger community that we belong to, which is part of a larger and a larger and a larger community. We belong to lots of communities because the whole world spins on relationships. And our readings this weekend are reminding us how important relationships are. And I think that we're living in a time where it's very easy to kind of disconnect from being in relationship with people who we either don't see or we don't really engage. Maybe they think differently than we do, or look differently than we do, or believe differently than we do. And so maybe we don't have a lot of opportunity to relate. But our charity, our goodwill as a church, does not discriminate. And that is something that we can be proud of. That being said, I just want to give you a couple of images from these readings, because these are really powerful readings, especially with everything going on in our world today. One is one that I'm going to use, and the other is right from the scripture itself. So I'll start with the second one. Jesus talks right at the very end of that gospel reading. We hear about the measure with which you give, you will receive whatever. In a good measure, you will receive God's goodness in good measure, firmly packed down, right, and overflowing. So what he's using is an image of like a measuring cup. Imagine like with flour or something like this, right? And you put it into the measuring cup, and you pack it down, right? And you kind of scrape off the top, and you pack it, shake it down, so you get just the most that you can, right? And then what does Jesus say? This is like the generosity of God you're going to get. Usually when you put flour, you just kind of, no, we want to stuff as much of this as to make a point to you. So it's all that we have, all that God has to give us, all neatly packed together in this lovely little container that he then, what does he do? Takes it, turns it up, and dumps it in your lap. Imagine doing that with a cup of flour or something like this that you would measure like that. That you would get it all organized, put it together, and you would just dump it in the lap. And what happens? It kind of becomes a mess, and it sort of goes everywhere. That's the image that they're talking about with God's generosity and our vocation as being made in the image and likeness of God. And I want to flip side that with another image and likeness kind of image. Now, this may shock you, but I am not a martial arts ninja. Why'd you laugh? I'm not. But I am familiar with a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I am familiar a little bit with the concept of Aikido. Have you heard of that type of martial arts, Aikido? So Aikido has a lot to do with like mirroring the aggression of the person who's like your enemy or whatever, right? So they come at you with energy and with physical stuff, and you just, remember that scene from like Lucille Ball with Groucho Marx or whoever, and they do the mirror thing, right? That's what you do with Aikido, but like physically and sort of emotionally. And you absorb the energy of your opponent, right? See how cool I am of this? Like, right? And so you absorb the energy of your opponent. You don't necessarily match it, right? You absorb it. And the goal of that kind of martial art is that ultimately in this relationship that becomes very frustrating, like in the truest sense of the term, that the opponent will come to the conclusion that hopefully you have made yourself, which is that this violence is totally stupid, right? It's useless. It doesn't do anything. It's not helpful. And then we can get beyond it. But if we meet violence with violence, if we treat people how they're treating us rather than how we would like to be treated, those kinds of things. This is stuff we know. Jesus is reminding us that that is a dumpster fire waiting to happen. Don't do it. But if you meet people where they're at, if you remember to be in relationship, frequently we can do this with our gifts, like at offertory, we'll bring up so many good things. At Christmas time, you might be invited to parties where it might say on the invitation, bring an unwrapped gift, right? Because we're going to do good things. We're not just coming to a party, we're going to do good things. So bring an unwrapped gift, and a deserving child, in need will get this gift. And that's all you have to do. And I would argue there's some disconnect there because there's a passive thing, right? Just bring the gift and somebody will get it. There's no real relationship there between me and the receiver. And then also, someone who deserves it will get it. Not someone who doesn't deserve it, someone who deserves it. Frequently, that's the language we'll see employed in various types of things that we weave in and out of on the regular. But the fact of the matter is, Jesus is telling us, I know that you get that stuff pretty regularly. Let me remind you, it's not about who deserves it, or if they deserve it. Because here's the thing, none of us deserve anything. No matter who we are or what we've done, no matter where we come from, no matter what we believe or don't believe, none of us did anything to earn our lives. None of us. And so as a result, the core of who we are ought to be gratitude, which, by the way, is the English translation of the Greek word Eucharist, to give thanks, gratitude. And if we pull that out and we replace that with a sense of entitlement, which is kind of happening a lot, then we take the very core of who we are and replace it with the opposite of gratitude, with entitlement. And we become like a self-eating monster that bites its tail and just keeps going until it's gone. And who kind of loses out in that? We do. I mean, we take plenty of people down with us along the way if we adopt that lifestyle, but we do. But much better is it, much better, to recognize all of the generous things that God has given to us. And in all of our efforts to be well-formed Christian Catholics in the world, we take those gifts and we learn and we receive and we organize them into this measuring cup that is our lives, our bodies, our physical space in this world. And we're very concerned that everything be kind of neatly, compactly, look a certain way, keep it nice and organized, and that we also be full, because we want to be full of gifts, of comforts, of all kinds of things. And God is saying, that's good. Pack it in. Get as much as you can of your goodness. Recognize it, and then turn it over. And let the wind take it to wherever it's going to go. Because our goodness, so too can our negativity. Our goodness can go out there and touch all kinds of people in all kinds of ways that we will never recognize. Just by turning that tightly compact reality over and letting God kind of take it with the Spirit. So we meet negativity with like a holy absorption, a strategy. Jesus had a strategy to get it. Think about this. Think about what Jesus did with just like 12 people, and then a few others, and look at where we are today. Okay? This is not magic. This is the way it works. Relationships work by being involved in connecting what we do with who is around us. And that is what I think the Cardinal is going to try to remind us of. Nobody likes to have to talk about giving extra money and things like that, so it's no fun. But the fact of the matter is, all that stuff is just symbolic of something so much bigger, which is our connection with one another, which is the thing that brings us together, which is the thing that makes us church, which is why we're here today. And all that other stuff just helps make it go. So I'd ask you to listen and to have your hearts open to this message of connection and relationship to the church beyond our walls here today. Okay? Thanks. It occurs to me, so I have a nephew who's going to Notre Dame to play football. And now, I don't know if you pay attention to college athletics, but we talk about NIL all the time, name, image, likeness, name, image, likeness. Now, student athletes can sell their name, image, likeness and make money on it like professional athletes can. And this is not what people talk about when they talk about image and likeness. They're talking about college athletics and making money. And what it seems to me really important for us to remember is in our scriptures today and in our vocation every day, of all the beautiful things that God has made, only us, only human beings, have been made in the image and the likeness of God, who we've been reminded of is very generous and loving. And so that's what we've been called in this world where name and image and likeness is something that you are encouraged to use for self-profit, as good as it might be to be educated in the rest. We are trying to remind each other and ourselves that to be made in the image and likeness of God is what it's really all about, which draws us into relationships with the other. So thank you for that. And we're going to gather our prayers together here momentarily and pray for our church together and continue our liturgy.